If you guys guys and gals want to introduce yourselves to the people who are listening.
Hello, people. My name is Vicky.
Peace, it's Supreme Allah from the ABE movement, Sankofa Study Circle, co-program manager.
Oh, we're all about integration,
Complementarity.
equality, partnership, and all black everything. I didn't give you a chance to introduce yourself.
It's Money Mo. You know, the big sister of our wonderful DJ and producer, DJ Manny Money, who put together our intro.
Shout out to DJ Manny Money for actually shortening the intro. It was like 2 minutes long, and people were like, hey, we need to shorten it. So, you know, he's in high school, you know what I'm saying? So he had to take some time from his studies to shorten this intro for us.
But let us know if you want the producer's cut, because we do have that on deck. ABE exclusive. The producer's cut of the ABE intro. Holler at us.
That's what's up, you know what I'm saying? So shout out to DJ Manny Money. Shout out to all the beautiful black people out there listening right now to Reparations Radio. As we come here tonight, we got a lot of good topics. But I really want to give Sankofa Study Circle, which I think is the foundation of all black everything, and what we're trying to do as far as elevating black consciousness, revolutionizing the minds of black people and African people across the world. You know what I'm saying? But before we get into that, I want to do a few housekeeping things. Tomorrow at 6 p.m., the Feed the People program will be meeting at 4850 West Fond du Lac Avenue. That's 6 o'clock p.m., 4850 West Fond du Lac Avenue. If you can make it, Feed the People is all about food justice and revolutionizing the way that we see our health and nutrition, cultivating our own food culture, and building institutions that we control that give us access and the opportunity to eat better and to feed our children and our communities more and have control over that process. And so if you are interested in those type of things, Feed the People will be meeting tomorrow at 6 p.m. at 4850 West Fond du Lac Avenue. On the 13th, I know you have something.
I was going to add Feed the People's meeting specifically over the next couple of weeks about the Feast of Ma'at. The Feast of Ma'at is our opportunity to actually host an event, which is the anti-Thanksgiving. And just to give a brief synopsis of what it is, Africans don't celebrate slavery. The Japanese don't celebrate the days when the bombs were dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Jews don't celebrate the Holocaust. Palestinians don't celebrate the Nakba. Why should we even think about celebrating Thanksgiving? We remember and pay our respects to those whose lives were lost, but we do not host a celebration about the demise and death of other peoples. This is our opportunity to actually remember our ancestors, give thanks for life and appreciation of it, but not supporting that system, that holiday that's really about oppression, genocide, and killing our people.
It really is one of those situations where, you know, when we say critically rethink and challenge everything, and this is an instance of something that's institutionalized in our country as we celebrate. I know I've been used to celebrating since I was a kid, Thanksgiving. And, you know, but once we look at the culture of it, the origination of what Thanksgiving was, and the extermination and genocide of our Native American brothers and sisters, ABE feels that is disrespectful to humanity to celebrate any type of holiday that celebrates the demise of another people. And so we won't be participating in that type of cultural celebrations. And so what we're going to do is not just talk about it, we're going to be about it. We're going to provide the alternative for people to come and learn more about not only ABE but African culture and feed our people and fellowship while we're doing it. So be looking out for that. And tomorrow is the planning process, as Monique said. So if you want to have some input and learn more about what we're trying to do, feel free to come through. Also, November 13th, we'll be having our Sankofa Study Circle, and the Sankofa team will be talking more so about what the program is about. But we'll be starting a new book called Black Power and the Garvey Movement by Theodore Vincent. Something I actually read maybe back in May or June. Really good book, and very excited to see us take that direction. So November 13th, 7 o'clock p.m. at the same place, our headquarters, 4850 West Fond du Lac Avenue. Please come. Bring a friend, bring a family member, so we can have good dialogue and building of African culture and power. So also, Vicky Porter, River West native, was on front page?
Middle page.
Middle page.
I know that's right. Just important.
Middle page.
First thing you open.
Middle page of the River West Currents. They did a fabulous article about her work, her life, and she gave some time to the article to shout out All Black Everything, and a very good picture of her. It was a very nice article. I had her sign my copy. previously, as before we got on the show. But shout out to Vicky Porter for holding it down. ABE stand up. And with that being said, we're going to get right into the nitty gritty of what we're trying to do here. Like I said, with Sankofa Study Circle, and I'll let Supreme and Vicky really have the meat of it. But I call it the foundation of what we're trying to do with ABE, because when we say revolution, we're talking about, first and foremost, we have to critically re-educate ourselves, because we have been miseducated for so long. We have been indoctrinated to the culture of Americanism and Eurocentrism. And so our whole basis of being, our whole consciousness, our whole way of life is really not ours. And it's a sad reality, and it's a shocking reality that a lot of people don't want to face. And we often talk about knowledge of self. And that's what Sankofa is supposed to start that process of having that knowledge of self, who we are, not only in the context as quote unquote Black Americans, but also as African people. And look at our history beyond, not only in the current context of the 400 years we have been in this country, but thousands and 10,000s of years of African history, African civilization, so we can truly know who we are, and we can find out where we're trying to go. And it's the most crucial component of our liberation, because our minds are mentally shackled. And so, without giving a whole lot of things away, I will let the Sankofa Study Circle talk about their program, how it came into existence, where they see it going, the books that we've read, and then they'll give you their own personal testimonies. I always think a personal testimony is more powerful than anything, about how something has changed someone's life and made them think of things in a different way. So, with that being said, man, the floor is yours. Don't be shy, man.
Peace. This is Supreme. With Sankofa Study Circle, there was a time in the summertime in which our three programs, Feed the People, Sankofa Study Circle, and our Buy Black program, were given program managers and program secretaries so that they could be more specifically catered to, and they could have the attention that they required. The chief of staff, Monique Liston, came and presented the opportunity to be a program manager with Sankofa Study Circle, and I thought it was great. And I jumped at the opportunity because I'd started in Sankofa Study Circle with Amos Wilson's Blueprint for Black Power, which is the first book that we actually read, which was very eye-opening. It was very detailed, and it is definitely a blueprint for Black Power. It talks about our communities economically. It talks about systems of oppression from government facilities, from government agencies, from corporations that we get money donated to our communities, which also donate to the systems of oppression in our communities at the same time. It's just a myriad of things. It's a number of pages, but if you get a chance to get that book, read it. We will also be putting together a study guide for that book too, in the very near future, for folks who are, will just begin to be reading it.
Right.
And there's several chapters in which they're very critical that individuals will need to read, and we'll have a study guide for that.
And Supreme, could you tell the people what Sankofa means, so they understand that?
Okay, yes, sir. Sankofa is an Akan term from the Ghana people in Ghana. It means go back and get it. And a lot of times, I always say that a lot of times when we are trying to move forward, a lot of times we always think about the future. Well, the future, this is what I'm going to do then. And sometimes in order to go and get your future, you have to go back and study your past. And I think most of the time before you move forward to your future, you have to go back and study your past, because the future in and of itself is unseen. And in order to prepare for it, you have to know where you stand, where you are, etc. Having said that, I want to bring up the idea of the ground rules for intellectual work. It's something that we use within Sankofa Study Circle, and I've applied it to my life, and it's very, very important, and it has worked for myself. And there are three rules, basically. The first one is to be present, and understanding your time and place and where you are horizontally and vertically. And by horizontally and vertically, I mean horizontally, know your place, where you are in the present time, and know your relationship between those who came before you and those who are to come after you. And then knowing yourself vertically is time and space, where you are at that present time. Like right now, it's 8:10 p.m. Barack Obama is president. We're here doing this radio show.
Forward.
We're here doing this radio show, and I'm sitting here with the ABE movement, etc. Just understanding where you are in relation to your past, and your present and your future, and that's all called the Congo Cosmogram, and understanding our position in life. The second rule is
To read and write.
to read and write. I mean, and also to inscribe and
Listen and inscribe.
listen and inscribe is the with the college term for it. So it's listen and inscribe. So basically, we can start with read and write. It's important that whenever you're reading something, that you're also writing as well, because writing helps you to better understand what it is that you're trying to digest and ingest, so that you can bring it out in your own words, speak it in your own words. You can give it to somebody else in a way that they can understand, in a way that will invigorate them to go and read and write somewhere else as well. And that is characterized by the Kemetic words Sejim and Sesh, which is also something that we study within Sankofa Study Circle as well, trying to keep it rooted in an African-centered thinking. And then the third rule is
Speak to after,
which is what, Sister Vicky?
which is now that you've understood your place, where you're at, and you've read and
And written.
written, then now what are you going to do? So now you have to, I use it as saying you're going to put action behind what you've learned, behind what you've internalized. It's now going to be a way of life for you. So now you got to get to work.
Right, and you've done all this work. What is the purpose of it? And the biggest thing that Sister Mo always tells us is that after you get with speak to after, you have to start over again anyway.
Right.
And that
learning is a continuous process.
It's a continuous process. This isn't a circular. It's a circular process. We're a circular people. Our
Right.
history is not linear. It's circular. And also that is characterized by the Kemetic word Meket.
Maquette. So those who learn teach.
Right.
So
Exactly.
your job is to teach, basically.
Exactly.
Whatever you learn, you're supposed to go out and organize the people and share what you learned to folks who might not know it or need a better understanding.
Right. Or each one teach one,
Each one teach one.
or teach thousands if you have that ability.
I dig it. So what? So we had the Blueprint for Black Power, and I want to just implore people to really pick up that book. It's like 1,000 pages long.
Right.
But trust me, it's a very, very powerful book.
Yeah.
Get some friends.
I was
Read it
about
with some
to say,
friends.
Yeah,
read
read it with some
people.
friends. Dr. Amos Wilson also has a lot of lectures on YouTube. If you want to check out his lectures, and he'll talk about some of the concepts that he shared in that book. But the reason why we started with it, because when we were talking about starting an organization about Black Power, how do you not start with the blueprint for Black Power? He not only breaks it down in a level, and it's dense, so you're going to have to really study it, but he breaks it down to such a level. He not only provides the blueprint for what happened to us, he provides you the blueprint of what needs to happen to neutralize what has happened to us for our liberation. Right. And it's one of the best books that talks about not just that talks about the family unit, the economic piece, the political piece, the institution building piece, the defense piece. Like, it's a very good book on where we need to go as an African people. So I highly encourage people to pick that up and study with some friends.
Let me just shout out one, Preem and Vicky did a great job on talking about the ground rules of intellectual work, but I have to shout out Dr. Greg Kamathikar and ASCAC for indoctrinating me with the ground rules for intellectual work and the whole idea of study circle. The model of Sankofa Study Circle comes directly from ASCAC study guide, which I can get copies to you. I'll make sure to post that to the website. What's important that I also want to shout out is this weekend we had the Midwest Regional for ASCAC. So you had all of these scholars who helped contribute to this thought, this idea of the ground rules, the idea of Africana deep thought, the idea that we need to listen and inscribe, and they've been here in the city putting that energy out there, making sure that it's inscribed in the Midwest, on the West Coast and the East Coast. So I just want to make sure that we, shout out where we get these ideas from, because the whole idea, the thing that I always try to emphasize is I'm not coming up with anything new. Our ancestors have already laid out the information for us. They've already placed it for us. Then the whole reason, like Preem said, is our job is to go back and get it. We have to go back and get it and then practice the maquette going forward and understanding how to use it. But definitely the basis of not only Sankofa Study Circle, but how all ABE programs run.
I think, and just to give to the people, the idea of a study circle is nothing unique. These are the type of things that helped our heroes, whether it was Garvey or Malcolm, whether it was the Harlem Renaissance that really brought in a whole new movement that allowed Garvey's movement of the UNIA to really flourish in that culturalistic society, was that folks were studying together, iron sharpening iron, people being challenged on what they believe, what they know, working out different ideas. This is how liberation thought was actually started in Black America, was through study circles, and that's why we do them. And so anywhere that people are studying African history and trying to organize themselves, we support that, and we encourage people to do that. So, but to get back,
I have a question. I kind of want to ask a question to everybody in the room. Sankofa Study Circle, the whole idea is just like what you said. It's like kind of the step before actually going about liberation and revolutionary work. And so we've all in this room been in Sankofa Study Circle since May. That's like 6 months. 6 months we have been every other week coming together and reading text. So I kind of just wanted to know, we talked about the idea of testimony. Like, what have you gotten over these last 6 months? Like, think about May, that first session when we came in and sat down at the table and said we about to read this 1,000-page book to now where we were like, okay, we can get through a book a month. Like, what has changed for y'all since over those 6 months? Preem?
Let you, Vic handle that.
Well, for myself personally, just the idea of being able to, many of us go to school and we are in school and we just go and we hear somebody instruct and somebody teach, and we sit up there and we may or may not read what they told us to read, and we get our grade and we bounce. However, the idea that you're responsible for some text, that you will be presenting on it, that is not, because I remember seeing Mo and her being frustrated a little bit with just standing up and standing up in front of people, and just like she was the professor. She's like, it has to be a true study circle, so everybody was going to be incorporated into it. So people standing up, presenting text, being responsible for giving their understanding on it as well, was very critical and key. And also just the dialogue that came from the text. And for me personally, my favorite text within Sankofa Study Circle so thus far has been Complementarity, Thoughts for African Warrior Couples by Dr. Marlemu Baruti. Shout out to him too. Because I had been introduced to the text by Sister Mo last year, and when I read it, and I heard a complementarity in a physics term. However, I was like, how does this apply to relationships? But it really did when I actually read the book and read the text, and it helped me, give me a deeper insight and actually confirm some things about the reason and purpose for relationships between men and women. Other than just, ooh, you look good, I look good too, let's get together and have some pretty babies. They
don't work for African warrior scholars.
Exactly. So there has to be a bigger purpose.
You mean I can't find a woman to have fair skinned babies with good hair? That's not what complementarity is
you
about?
could. However, the idea is that the family is the bedrock of the nation, and so.
It's a bedrock of the nation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just saying the couple is the bedrock of the nation.
Pardon me.
Know your text.
Pardon me. The couple is the bedrock of the nation, and them being the bedrock of the nation, they have to understand that there is a bigger purpose for them being together, other than some of the things that we typically find ourselves mating based upon.
Like what? Like so you're saying the purpose of the couple is not just to be in love and make googly eyes at each other?
That's cool. However,
It's a bonus.
yeah, that's cool. However, there's a greater purpose. I mean, a lot of times
What's that purpose?
The purpose is to build, first and foremost. If you're talking about having children and creating children, it's building a unit in which those children can be healthy, thrive, and survive. Not necessarily survive, but thrive. And he talks about the difference between living and surviving, and also rearing and raising your children, and rearing them to be the best that they can be, African-centered, being reminded of their beautiful black selves at all times in the house. Even when they go out to the world, that's madness, and it's not where they're not going to necessarily be protected. They still have this concept of themselves as beautiful and respected, and all of those things that come with that. So that's one of the things, protecting the children, also building a community by which people can learn from one another as well. These are just my thoughts off the dome, where folks can learn from each other as well, where their richness and greatness as beautiful black people, as African people, can be realized, etc. It starts within those two people. That has to be the greater. We're both focusing on this, and also the liberation of black people from different types of, so many types of oppression, whether it be white supremacy, whether it be patriarchy, etc. The liberation of black people. This has to be the overarching
purpose and theme
of
why we're
purpose
together.
of our relationship. It's not the googly eyes.
So are you saying that the purpose of us being together, I'm with a woman, it's not about me just getting a nice house, you know what I'm saying, a dog and a cat, 2 kids,
White picket fence.
White picket fence. It's not about this nuclear American dream / model that they tell us marriage is about, where you move out somewhere and, you know, enjoy that nice suburban or urban lifestyle.
No. Sorry.
I'm gonna say this: having nice things is nice. However, if you are not building up your community in order to have those nice things, if you're having that at the risk or at the sacrifice of your community being built up, those who you claim to be your community, then you're no better than those who would oppress us.
Right. So you're not necessarily saying that those things are a bad thing. What you're saying is that the purpose of why we are together is to raise healthy children, raise African children, build African communities, build an African nation, and liberate our people.
True indeed.
Got it. That's what's up.
That kind of makes me think about myself and before I really got involved, like in the community, in the AB movement, I was really, I didn't own my own home and have a white picket fence, but I took care of mine. You know, we lived all right, and I was thinking that was all right. But
That was enough.
That was enough, but it really wasn't. And so once I had got out, you know, doing things in the community, that really helped me see that even though I'm doing all right with my own, if my other people are suffering, then what good is that? It makes no sense for me to be cool and my brother is down
Not
and
cool.
out,
Right.
and I'm not doing nothing to help him. How does that make me look? So,
So it gives you a purpose bigger than yourself.
yes.
Got it.
Share a little bit about your testimony with Sankofa, Sister Vic.
Sankofa, let me tell you. Let's see. We started in May. I was at first very intimidated. I'm not very scholarly like. I barely made it through high school. College was, it was college. I made it through the first round. So I was a little bit intimidated, especially when I saw that book, and I was like, oh, that's a really big book. But honestly, I think knowing that I had support from other people, it really helped me to engage in it and to have an open mind and read the text and, take it in. I would say the biggest thing I really got from Sankofa and steadily getting is the ability to rethink things. Like, I see things like way different now that I probably would have never even thought about. Like, things pop in my head, like as far as, us living in this white supremacist, society that we live in. I never really thought about it before. Like, everything you see is for white folks. So, myself, I'm half white, so I can appreciate that to some extent. But at the same time, I feel like my black side has been neglected. So
There you go.
So I really
She is ABE's test and equal rights.
yeah.
Integration.
I was joking with somebody about there was a war going on inside myself, but no, I just think Sankofa as a whole just really opened my eyes to just really look at stuff. I almost said a bad word. Can you say bad words on here?
No.
To really look at stuff and just try to see deeper than the surface.
Right.
Because what you see is not always what you get.
So that was a song, right?
Is it?
Was-
You gonna
that
sing
was
it
a
for
song.
us?
Go ahead and sing
What
a
you
little.
see?
There we go.
What you see?
I knew it was gonna get a little
What
clip.
you get.
I never heard that song. Shout out to E-Bit.
You're older than me, so you
Her
probably
white side.
should have.
It's her white side.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
What? But yeah, so overall, I was excited to come on to Sankofa as a secretary, and I try to push it and get people there, and really, I just encourage people to come out with the open mind. I think it's crucial to really rethink everything you've been
Everything.
taught, everything you think you know, everything they want you to think you know, because it's really,
It's
yeah,
deep.
it's deep.
I mean, I think that I can echo the same sentiments that Supreme and Vicky have.
Hold on. Before we get to that, let's talk about the birth of Sankofa Study Circle. I remember talking to Brother Biddle one day, like, oh, we can host a space where we talk about it. If anybody knows Brother Biddle, let's do it. Let's do it. And so we actually
I'm a man of
convened.
action.
We convened the space, and I'm like, yo, we gonna read this book. And he looks at the book like, what? this 1,000-page book is where we gonna begin. I'm like, nah, man, I want to read this book. Like, let's get together and read the book. And so between Ian and Ian really saying like everybody needs to come in the room. I was surprised. The first day we had 20 people in the room, and
a lot of people.
half of those people I had never seen before in my life. Mainly because Ian had said something. Ian said something, people listen. But the other half is people were genuinely interested in engaging in the text, and like it was an exciting day to really see people sit there and like challenge themselves and think about themselves. But I really want to Brother Ian to kind of talk about his process, like from day one of Sankofa Study Circle to now. Like, what's been the difference? What have you gotten? What have you gained? I know you echoing the same statements, but recognize that.
I mean, for me, it's been a very transformative process as far as my thought and how I look at the world. And I came from a perspective where I grew up in the Church of God in Christ, and my mother, had a very sound consciousness herself. And some of that, I was able to, I guess through osmosis, I was able to carry as well, But she was very involved in Afrocentrism back in the 80s and 90s when I was a kid. But it was something that I never really studied for myself. And even as being a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, we put a big emphasis on Egyptian history, ancient Ethiopian history. But it still wasn't something that I studied for myself. Not really knowing who I was. I was a person that was probably making fun of Africa and calling people African booty scratchers. And, somebody said you African, I'll be like, man, I'm from Milwaukee. That was me. And I think, from a cultural point of view, I can comfortably say and proudly say that I'm African. And not feel any shame about it. And really want to explain it to you if I don't feel like it, because I don't feel like I have to. It's my culture, my heritage, my identity. And but I think reading was the biggest key. I mean, I grew up reading a lot of books and not having, I guess, fallen out of love with reading. And so after I lost my automatic race, I had a lot of time to reconsider a whole lot of different things, politically, socially, economically, everything. And I had a lot of time to read and write. And I think people who know me, who know Ian, previous to April 3rd, can say it's a different Ian that they see, based on me challenging how I think about everything and really taking that motivation to read everything that I can get my hands on to figure out this thing called life. It's very complex. And I think the biggest thing for me is going 31 years and not hearing about Amos Wilson. Or being, a black man in America 31 years and never hearing about John Henry Clark. These are the giants of our intellectual work, and I never even heard people talk about them. And even when Mo or other folks would talk about them previous to me starting ABE and being part of Sankofa, I would just shrug it off. And so a lot of my political rhetoric was about self-independence, but it lacked a certain substance behind it and a certain ideology, political ideology and action plan behind, the cliche catchphrases of we need to do for self. What does that really mean? And I think that so when you look at Sankofa, the purpose is for us to start our own education spaces, our own institutions where we teach our own intergenerational, not only just the new generation of young people and our children, but folks our age and older about who they are, so they can have that consciousness and have that action plan to organize themselves, to do for themselves, and to be beautiful African people. So I think for me, someone who was people still think I'm a politician, maybe I am, has made me rethink how I even interact in this government system, how I interact in this political/electoral system. And a lot of folks who were my progressive allies and labor allies and people who supported me don't quite understand the process that I'm undergoing. But it's really, everybody has a different bottom line. And my bottom line is the progression and liberation of African people. And so I have to rethink my engagement and my endorsement of anything that is counterproductive to the liberation of African people. And so for me, it's, you know, I'll say it like this. They say a black man with a book is very dangerous. It's made me more dangerous because I know what I'm talking about now. And I can stand firmly on what I believe. And so it's ingrained with me with a consciousness of greatness. And no one can tell me anything different. And I think the biggest frustration that you see is when you see your people not living up to the greatness that's inside of them. And so for me, it's just totally changed my whole life. I can't explain. I mean, it's done more to change my life and open my eyes than any process that I've undergone in my complete 31 years of life. And so I just implore everyone to read and study what our ancestors took the time to cultivate so we can have the information to go forward and carry this black liberation thing. And so, and if you don't, and the reason why you have to have a Sankofa, and I think that Supreme and Vicky are doing a great job at managing
Excellent
the program.
job.
Is that this stuff really won't make a whole lot of sense to you until you do it. You know, it's like talking alien to people because you're not talking from the same perspective. And it's not I know more than you and I'm trying to put you down. I'm trying to degrade you before your lack of knowledge. It's really, we don't come from the same place. You know, it's like a dog talking to a cat. It's like a Democrat talking to a Republican, even though we know they're both the same thing. But you're not coming from the same square. You're not sitting on the same platform. And so a lot of buying black, why would you care about buying black if you don't understand why we need to buy black? And why would you care about calling yourself an African if you don't think being American is a bad thing? Like Sankofa really showed us that Americanism has destroyed our people. And any further involvement, any further endorsement of Americanism is counterproductive to the progression of African people. And so when you look at complementarity, as Supreme was talking about, it was giving African-centered solutions for African people. And Dr. Amos Wilson talks about that a lot. John Henrik Clarke talks about that a lot, that you cannot use the disease for your cure. And so Eurocentrism is the disease. Our African spiritual framework, our African culture, our African heritage is the cure for the disease of white supremacy that currently rules how we live. And so for me, like I said, you can't find me at any time not reading the book, not talking about a book, not quoting the book. You know, most of my purchases is probably on books. All I do is read. You know, all I do is write, and all I do is think about, you know, what we can do to really free our people. So.
Very dope. I think Sankofa has definitely been, like Brother Biddle said, one of the catalysts for why we are where we are today. Like, to really get the root of why ABE exists in this manner, you have to really look at Sankofa. But I don't want people to think that it's the most serious, scholastic, collegiate thing ever. I think what we really need to talk about, maybe everybody can kind of elaborate this on the mind-blowing components, the contentions, the arguments, the actual debates that we've had in Sankofa Study Circle, because I think that's really where the growth comes from. For people's thoughts actually being challenged. It's not like in a classroom where you can get away with reading something and never actually being challenged. If you're in that room, your thoughts are going to be challenged. So maybe if people can talk a little bit about those experiences of being in the room where it was like, whoa, what is this? So people get a little more depth of like, this isn't just a classroom. This is really a study group, a peer-to-peer type of interaction.
I'm trying to think.
I think for you, personally speaking, you had a very hard time when we started talking about Christianity.
See, I was gonna go into that, and I won't even say I had a hard time, but I know
you was on Facebook. Jesus still loves me.
You was sending messages at midnight like, "Yo, I'm having a problem with this. I'm really trying to think this through."
No, and it wasn't. And see, I was born, raised in a Christian household and whatnot. Raise my children, you know, to be Christian-like, and when that was challenged, at first my initial thought was like, oh snap, what's going on? I want to go to hell. You know, that's what you think.
A natural black person's reaction.
But surprisingly for myself, that thought didn't last long. It really just made me think like, okay, if this in fact is not 100% accurate or whatever, then what is? And if something else is, I need to know what that is. If this is not true, I need to know the truth. And even to this day, I still, you know, I'm challenged with some things, but I'm open to what is real. So, and I think for so many Christian people, that's the hard thing. Like, to open your mind to really think about something other than what you've been raised in is hard. But for me, I had that thought like, oh snap, but then I didn't let that stop me. See, a lot of people will have that thought, and then it's like, I ain't messing with that,
Right.
and then deuces, that's it.
Right.
But for me, it was different. I was open to receive whatever I needed to receive, and I haven't felt any kind of like damnation or whatever, you know, from what I'm learning and what I'm questioning, what I'm rethinking. And for me, that sense of peace is enough for me. So I already know whatever I know and whatever I'm learning, and as long as I can feel peace, you know, within myself about that, I'm cool with it. It's a little challenging for me, like with my sons, because I'm kind of in a place now where I just want to like teach them what I'm learning, but at the same time they're like, what are you talking about? You're all black power, everything, and all, you know, everything. So it's hard for them, because like to switch gears from, you know, this is how we've been to this is how I'm trying to get, this is where I'm trying to get us to. And so they'll talk to me about religion and, you know, things like that, and God, and, you know, I just kind of tell them what I can, and, you know, I tell them now, I want you to rethink everything I taught you. Go do your own research.
That's dope. That's
Go
really
challenge that, because maybe what I know or what I thought I knew, I didn't.
Right.
How many parents are out there telling their kids, challenge what I say?
I think that's very admirable as a, you know, from a parent perspective, for you to admit to your children that I might have been wrong.
Right.
I was doing the best that I can at the time, and I think it's an important point to make, is that you shouldn't feel bad for not knowing,
No.
and you shouldn't feel bad for not, you know, doing right, you know, by your people. But I think that at a certain point in time, you have to make the decision to do that. You know, when you are faced with those situations where things just ain't quite right. My people are being oppressed wherever I look. There has to be something better, something more. And I think that's where you find folks being at fault, is when you know better and you don't do better. But,
Right.
Real quick, I just got a message from our Twitter, and somebody asked, very timely, do youth participate in Sankofa Study Circle?
Oh, shout out to the
So
youth.
I want to give a big shout out to all of Vicky's kids that have been in Sankofa Study Circle. So yeah, she's at home telling them one thing, but they've seen it for their own
seen it.
selves, and they've
Right.
been hands on. Like, shout out to all of the little ones, because they have been hands on.
Right, Urban Underground. We got plenty of young people from Urban Underground who come
Yes.
up and present and participate in the group discussions. And folks, you know, bring your kid. I mean,
It's
anybody
all
who comes.
ages.
It's
all
It's
ages.
truly intergenerational.
Babies to
No.
grandmas
And
are
even
all
if-
in the building.
If those babies are coloring on a piece of paper, seeds are being planted.
Yes.
So the youth component, I'm blown away every time a young person gets up and reports on a chapter they read, even if they didn't read prior to, just coming in and jumping in with some people, soaking in that knowledge and talking about, you know, their perspective. To me, that's dope. It doesn't get better than that, because everybody knows Miss Vicky love the kids, so I really like that. Moves my spirit, like
Right.
to see young people at Sankofa and any ABE event, anything that we do, to see them stand up, because they are the reason we're doing what we're doing, and their children and their children and their children. So I think
Right.
it's dope.
Indeed. Before I go into the next piece, I want to send a shout out to my homegirl Erica, who's listening in the suburbs of Dallas, Texas.
Shout out to
Big D.
Erica.
Shout out
Dallas.
to Erica.
It's so
'cause,
cold in the D.
so she's listening in. I just wanted to send her a shout out. As far as the young people, the young people are fabulous. A lot of the young people who are operating in the Fresh Plates program, which is a program of the Feed the People, and I'm sure that they'll it's a partnership with Feed the People. I'm sure when they're on that they'll speak about
They'll
that.
be on next week.
Right, they'll be on next week to speak
dope.
about that. I remember one time we had a Feed the People Meet Sankofa meeting for Feed the People, and we talked about food oppression and how the relation between our food, the relation between what we eat and our oppression. And we were talking about different things that people do in different parts of the country. In Oakland, they have a program, and they talked about, Stokely Carmichael, aka Kwame Ture, and they talked about different people that they were studying in their food program. And we went to this whole thing about the history of why we eat, our oppression as far as being captives and our period of captivity in this country, etc. And it was just dope. And the people were like, man, this is dope, this is good, we need to. And they're very enthusiastic. And these. Shout out to Urban Underground as well for properly training young people to be organizers and to be involved in their communities, and also True School and other organizations as well.
Right.
However, the young people are absolutely fabulous. They have more questions than there was one young brother who asked a question. My cousin actually was in our last
one,
Sankofa study circle where we were talking about survival pending revolution, which is a story about the Black Panther Party.
He was a former Black Panther.
He's a former Black Panther here in the city of Milwaukee, and he was talking about his experience in the Black Panther Party. And one of the young people asked a question. He said, if you could go back knowing what you know now and do something differently, what would you do? And my cousin was like, man, that's a good question. And he thought about it for a minute before he answered it. And I was one of the young brothers that's involved. I actually met him in another program a couple years ago. However, he's involved in Urban Underground and Fresh Plates and in Sankofa Study Circle. It was about 5 or 6 young people that day. So yeah, they're definitely heavily involved.
And encourage. I mean, if you come, like I said, bring a young person with you. Tell young people that they're welcome. Everybody's welcome. Like I said, there's a very diverse range of people from the youngest to the oldest. Sometimes my son Bean comes with me and sits and causes chaos as we all try
Our favorite student.
Lovely
as
chaos.
we all try to study. I think a couple of different things. I think that everybody here, especially everyone in ABE, they believe in God. They believe in a spiritual entity that's bigger than us. And I think what the re-education does for you is you understand why it was used in the way that it was. And so you try to get to the essence and to the truth of what it is. And I think it actually strengthens your belief in the spiritual entity rather than just walk away completely from it. I think it actually strengthens how you view all these tools, all these things that you participate in. And the purpose is, I would never tell my kids that if there's something blocking them from liberation, from their own progression, from their own success, to keep it there because it's comfortable, or to keep it there because of tradition. I would tell them to move it out the way. When you see obstacles, you move them out the way. And I think that the re-education really helps us to move the mental obstacles of self-defeat, of apathy, of self-hatred, of thinking like white people out of the way so we can get back to who we are and who we used to be and where we need to go. And I think, if anything, what it's really taught me is humility. It's taught me that you just don't have an obligation to speak truth to power. You have an obligation to teach. You have an obligation to not use knowledge as an assault against the falsehoods that we get in the propaganda that we get bombarded with. But you have an obligation to use that knowledge and build somebody up and empower them to build their own knowledge base and to be intellectually independent to the point where they're looking up their own words, their own articles, and reading outside of Sankofa. That's the point of all that we're trying to do, is empower people to do for themselves. And you can't do it without reading. I'm sorry. It's the most crucial component of any type of work that you do. From organizing work to building bridges. You can't do it without a knowledge base. And we can't say that we're black and not act like black people and think like black people. And we can't say that we're not African when we all are from African descent. Like, if we are going to truly turn this thing around and change our trajectory, we have to figure out who we are and where we need to go from an African perspective, from an African point of view. And I say that with such insistence because it's just the truth. And the truth shall set you free, as the good book says.
I know I've been reading Foundations of a independent black educational institution, which is the notes from the Pan-African Congress in Atlanta in 1970. And Frank Satterwhite wrote in there that our job is to educate the pure and decontaminate everyone else. And so when we think about the reasons why Sankofa can work in the way that it does, is because everyone needs to know. Everyone needs to know. We have the blessing to talk to the youth right away so they can go to school and be like, that ain't right. Y'all are lying. I know this. And not only do I know this, it's not just because my mama told me. Here's the reference. They can come in with that type of armor. At the same time, we have to understand that we are contaminated people. We are contaminated with ideology that is not of our own. And so we go in places like Sankofa Study Circle to decontaminate ourselves. And so I think of Sankofa Study Circle, and I've said this on more than one occasion, it's just like church. It's the idea, you go to church on every Sunday, people say to themselves, you know what, can't wait till Sunday morning, I need to hear the word, I need to be in the presence, the fellowship, I need to receive the blessing. I need those things because it's a spiritual component of being in church. It has very little to do with what the practice is, what the logistics is, but it's being in a designated space that's set aside directly for you and your connection to whoever your spiritual, however you identify with God. And so when we talk about Sankofa Study Circle, that space is just as spiritual. You can tell people, people can testify to the fact I was having a terrible day. Then I came to Sankofa. I'm so glad that I did. I'm so glad that I didn't, because the idea that you're able to commune in a space that is strictly about you rebuilding in yourself in a liberated way, without the confines of an ideology that is not your own, without the confines of an ideology that tears you down, without the confines of an ideology that does not promote your well-being. Being able to be in that space is spiritual. So when we connect with the text, when we have these discussions, and it gets heated, we have debates. I'm sure many people leave out the room like, I totally disagree with what X, Y, and Z said.
Right.
But it's a fair enough space where you can do that.
Where you can do that.
You're supposed to challenge everything.
And not feel attacked.
And not feel attacked.
Right.
It's a welcome challenge, because the idea is we need to leave out this space better than we were when we came in.
Right.
Every single time, that's the idea.
That's called doing our best work.
Doing our best
being
work.
Our best selves.
Doing our best work and being our best selves. Dr. John Henry Clarke, one of those do your best work echoes. I've said this so many times today alone, but John Henry Clarke said that the day Malcolm died, he found out Malcolm had been killed. He went and had a moment, and he was just, he was a good friend of Brother Malcolm. And he said that Malcolm came to him and said, John, do your best work. And from there on out, you can hear speech after speech that Dr. Clarke echoes, is that our responsibility is to do our best work. And we reified that in the idea of Sankofa Study Circle. When people say, I haven't done it, go back to the idea, we have to do our best and nothing short of it. And it's not because we're unprepared, and it's not because we don't know how. We just need to commit ourselves to saying we can do our best work. And so out of all the programs, and I've said this before on the radio show, Sankofa is the dearest to my heart, and it may be the teacher in me, maybe my passion for education, but if anything, you can see the trajectory where people are going. I can testify right here for Sister Vic, talking about what happened on May 1st. She was scared, like, what is happening here? This is a lot. So she's running this program. This is her. She's telling people how to get this message and understand where they're going with the text. So it's important to understand that the growth part of being in something like this, everybody, myself included, can testify. Where we were May 29th is way different than we are on November 4th. And it's because, not only because, but it has a large part to do of what Sankofa instills in us. It instills in us the practice of being able to, like Preem said, implement the ground rules, and not just that, but in our lives.
I want to just talk about the commitment piece that you just mentioned. And I know a lot of people, myself included, be like, I don't have time to read, blah, blah, blah. But I think it's important that you turn off the TV and you pick up a book. It's just that simple. Get off Facebook, get a real book. That's all I got to say.
I like that. Get off Facebook, get a real book. I know you had an announcement only before we start to close out.
Yeah, on Saturday, Africans on the Move, shout out to Baba and Mbalia, is hosting the women's conference. And it's going to be held, I'm just making sure I have the right information there. It's Saturday, November 10th. It's the 20th annual Africans on the Move Women's Conference. Saturday, November 10th from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Wisconsin African American Women's Center. And what you're going to have the opportunity to see is that you have a whole lot of information about women's history in the liberation movement. We talked a little bit about that last week. But also organizations from across the city get to come and talk about their agenda on women. So ABE will be there. Women from ABE will be meeting after our sister circle and encouraging people to join us, but talking about what the agenda is concerning these issues about women. I know we're going to, in the future, dedicate a show directly to that, but I just want to make sure that everybody has that. 20 years, the Mbalias have been doing great work in the community and big supporters of ABE. So if you have a chance to get out to that conference, it's free. Commune with people, meet some ABE folk, definitely join us.
So I want to thank Vicky and Supreme for making time this evening to come out and share the good news of Sankofa Study Circle with the people, the listeners. We'll bring them back. We never really have enough time to get through everything, but right. That's the evidence of a good storyteller. They always leave you hanging, right? But Sankofa is very important. Please come November 13th, 7 o'clock p.m. Before I end the show, I always do a 10 things just to lighten up the mood because there's a lot of dense, a lot of heavy information. And so in the spirit of election day, people are going to the ballots. People may have already gone to the booth to submit their ballot for president. Forward. That's all we're saying. Forward. We're not saying forward where, but forward. But 10 reasons why our beautiful black people are voting to re-elect President Barack Obama. Number 1.
Brother Preem needs to start because he always be hitting us up afterwards with his wonderful drink.
Brother Preem, number 1.
The fly ride that he gets to ride in the Beast.
Number 2. Somebody.
That cute puppy dog that they adopted.
Number 3.
Because he's got impeccable swag.
Number 4, because he's black. Number 5.
Because he's black.
Number 6.
Because his wife got a donk.
She do got a dunk. Number 7.
And 8, Malia and Sasha.
Number 9.
Ooh, number 9. Number 9. Because he's black.
Because he's black. And number 10.
Because Mitt Romney dyes his hair and them little white parts on the side is just like Rogaine and type.
he looked just like the dude on the Just for Men box.
You can't have that in the White House. Come on, son.
We missed 2, man. Lesser 2 evils.
Oh, lesser 2 evils.
And because the only thing that
He's
our
gonna cut my Pell Grants.
Right, cut our Pell Grants. And the only reason why our ancestors died, the only reason why they struggled, the only reason
to get a black man in office
was to vote.
Oh, to vote.
That was it.
That's sarcasm, people.
For this vote. For this kind of vote. This kind of vote.
Look, they endured whipping in the sun, dude, just for us to vote. Not for freedom, not for liberation. Just to vote.
Not
If you are familiar with Senator R. Clay, what's his name?
Oh, Senator Clay from The Wire?
From The Wire. I can't say it because, I just would like to quote him. I can't say it.
Shout out to everybody who's participating in their right to determine the leadership of this country for whatever reason that you might choose to do it. We just say that do it in the spirit, do everything for the spirit of African liberation, for your own liberation, for your own progression, for your own agenda, and not because of propaganda, not because of political party, and not because of anything other than the progression and liberation of your people. So with that being said,
Reparations Radio
is out of here. Have a great week. Be beautiful, be African. Love you all. Peace.
Peace. Proper education. Always correct.